watches have been posted for parts of the east coast of Florida, not to mention the Bahamas. Here's the thing, the forecast calling for the storm to approach parts of the southeast coast by early in this upcoming work week.
Yes, and NHC Director Michael Brennan joining us now. Michael, you know, there's a lot of things going on with these systems, a lot of mechanics that are working into it. We're wondering, what are the biggest concerns that you think are currently happening right now?
Well, right now in the short term, we're expecting significant impacts in parts of the Bahamas where we have tropical storm warnings in effect, and we're pretty confident in the track forecast for the depression up through the next 2 to 3 days. So taking the system through the central and northwestern Bahamas as it intensifies to a tropical storm, then approaching hurricane strength as we get into the early portions of next week. We did just issue that tropical storm watch for the portions of the east coast of Florida, where even if the system gets a little bit closer, we could see those tropical storm force winds brush the immediate coastline there from Martin County up through the Cape Canaveral area to the Daytona Beach area. But when we get up here off the coast of the southeast U.S., I think the thing we're most concerned about is it's not going to take a direct landfall for there to be some significant impacts from storm surge, winds, rainfall, flooding, especially if we have a system that's meandering here along or near the coast, say, of South Carolina. And there are still scenarios where the system could come in and make landfall or sit here for several days or stall out and then move off to the east. So, but again, it's just to remind people that even if you don't see an explicit landfall forecast, it doesn't mean there aren't going to be impacts.
And Michael, one of the things that we're watching very carefully, I'm curious just to get your insight on this. Obviously, the cone of uncertainty is wide. What would necessitate, what would need to happen for what is going to be Imelda to perhaps list toward the left side of that track? What ingredients would need to come into play for that?
Yeah, I think, well, there's this potential for interaction with Humberto, powerful hurricane off to the east. The faster Imelda starts to move northward, the closer it will get to the southeast coast before it starts to feel the effects from Humberto. So, when we were looking at it, say, yesterday or the day before, it looked like what is expected to become Imelda was going to move very quickly northward and get close to or even onshore in portions of the southeast U.S. before Humberto sort of got up to that same latitude. Now it looks like Humberto is going to be moving northward kind of in tandem with the depression, and that's going to serve to potentially break down the steering flow here and cause the what's now Tropical Depression 9 to slow down and maybe meander here. And then if the interaction becomes even stronger, it could pull that system out to the east as Humberto turns northeastward to the west of Bermuda.
And Michael, kind of with that kind of meandering there, the potential, of just kind of stalling that system right there. Yeah. What's the worst case scenario, I guess, for how long this system could kind of sit and what mechanics would kind of eventually pull it out with Humberto in the coming days?
Yeah, so I mean, sort of the worst case scenario would probably be a direct landfall and then the system stalling, say, somewhere inland over South Carolina or North Carolina. That would sort of give you your worst case scenario from a storm surge perspective, where you would get the highest storm surge with a direct landfall, and then the potential for very, very heavy rainfall somewhere here, likely in the Carolinas, that could extend well into portions of next week. Once you start to break down that steering flow and the storm basically stalls out and starts to meander, something else has to sort of establish itself in terms of the mid-latitude westerlies dipping down to start to carry it off to the east. Or you could, there were scenarios where the system just sits there and decays inland and never actually comes back out. So all those scenarios are still in play. The main message to people all the way from, say, coastal Georgia up through North Carolina is stay tuned. We do have a little bit more time with that slower forward motion. We're expecting the system to be up in this vicinity as we get from, say, Tuesday into Wednesday. So we'll have time to hopefully sort out some of the details on the forecast in the next day or two before those hazards and impacts start in this area. Yeah,
Michael, all that to say it is going to be a very busy short term for you and your entire crew. I know that you will be watching this every step of the way. NHC, National Hurricane Center Director Michael Brennan. Michael, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.